In this module, we're going to go through the 7th and 8th of the OWASP Top 10 vulnerabilities. First, we'll go through number 7, which is missing function level access control. And with that, we need to make sure you have a reminder that access control always must be at the client side and the server side. And if you had to pick one, you make sure that it is on the back end on the server side. And as we'll see what I'm talking about with the function level access control, it needs to be done on the server side. So who are the threat agents? The threat agents are anyone able to trying to get access to specific functionality that they're not supposed to have access to, and sometimes it works. They have to have knowledge of the system, and they have to have knowledge of the types of things it can do so that they can try to see if it will work. So here's an example. So say that the attacker browses to a URL and can see that there are some different functionalities that starts out with the same beginning of the URL, and then the last part is changed. And then you can see on the left side, there's an action equals read in the URL. And then they say, action equals read. What if I change that to action equals delete? And it should prevent them from being able to delete, but maybe it won't. And if that's the case, the attacker can take advantage of that. Another example is if you look at this type of a URL and say you are authenticated into a system, and you are authenticated as a patient in a healthcare application, but you know that there's a different URL within the system that you saw on their doctor's screen, and you authenticate as a patient, and then up at the top of the screen you type in the doctor's URL. It should stop you, because of this function level access control, it should stop you from looking at the doctor's URL. But if you don't have function level access control, and you just are saying because you're authenticated and because you are typing in a URL within our system, we're going to give you access to it, then you will fall prey to this vulnerability. So what you really need to make sure that you have enforcement and you have it on the server side. You deny access by default. So you need to only authorize someone to have access to a certain functionality because you've checked that they have that authority. Which means when you go to a new page, just say the patient does type the doctor's URL, and before it gives them that functionality, it should again check, are you a doctor? And if they aren't, deny access, which means every single page that you have in your system must authorize the user based upon their particular authentication and their role. Here's just a comic, but it's very true. So here's a user account on your laptop, and you can see all the different types of applications that may be open on the laptop. And it says if someone steals my laptop while I'm logged in, they can read my mail, take my money, impersonate me to my friends, but at least they can't install drivers without my permission. And that's because the makers of the drivers are actually smart enough to realize that maybe the users don't want drivers or new software installed, and it asks them to re-authenticate. But all of the other applications, maybe they allow you to be logged in forever. And like something like PayPal or your bank, that's a very dangerous thing. And so you want to make sure, in making sure that you have this function level access control, that you actually also have timeout functionality, or depending upon the severity of the type of domain you're in, maybe prevent someone from being kept logged in. All right, so now we'll move on to number 8, which is called cross-site request forgery. And what is that? With cross-site request forgery, a user is forced, is forced to go to another URL and be re-authenticated, making it look legitimate. And I'll explain this more. And so, who are the threat agents? Anyone who actually wants to exploit you, to get some information out of you, and particularly they're trying to get this information out from a place that you are likely to already be logged into. In order to perform this type of an exploit, they're going to assume that you are already logged in and authenticated in a different place, and they're going to extract information. Here's an example. Just say that here's a bank, and you can look at the URL and study. Like on your own account, you can see, okay, when I'm logged in, this is what the URL looks like. And in order to launch a cross-site request forgery attack, what this is actually some HTML that is embedded with an image, and in the image, it is sending you to this insecure bank website, where you are already logged in, and it is going to your account. Now, this type of embedding in an image would not work if you were not already authenticated and logged into the bank. So in order to launch this type of an attack, the only way it would work is if it is an application that allows a user to be logged in at all times. So you have to watch out for the domain that you're in, and whether it would work for you. So that if the user is already authenticated at Insecure Bank, then this request will automatically include the user's session and the funds are transferred. So that's the type of attack that can be launched with this. So how do you prevent it? One way is to have a unique authentication token as a hidden field within HTML. However, you want to remember that hidden fields are in the HTML, they're on the client side. And so this provides, into the defense in depth, why not do this? Why not make a protection mechanism that's in the client side? Why not? But you want to make sure you're doing it on the server side as well. The other thing to do is to re-authenticate for all critical operations. For example, the bank. So even if you don't allow users to remain logged in at all times, if you allow them to remain in for long periods of time, then even with that, your users are at risk of this type of cross-site request forgery attack. But if the user is going to transfer $10,000 to another account external to your bank, in order to allow them to do that, then ask them their password again. And if you do that, for critical operations, then you will not fall prey to this type of an attack. You can also, I would advise you to look at the OWASP cross-site request forgery guard to prevent it in many ways. Some examples of actual attacks, and I'll say both of these have been closed up, but there were times back in 2006, 2008, where both Netflix and YouTube fell prey to this. Why is that? Many people do remain logged into Netflix or YouTube all the time, or if they aren't logged in, if they don't have a window open with it on, then when they do open that window, they're automatically authenticated. And so with that, because of that, then the users were able to, the attackers were able to actually launch attacks involving Netflix and YouTube because of these default settings. So both of them have closed those attacks up, but think about other places, whether it be Facebook or where are you already authenticated, and also where are you, often have that window open on your screen all the time. I think for many people, Facebook is a perfect target for something like this because people do keep that window open in order to sneak a peek at Facebook whenever they want to. And so then, therefore, that's the type of place that this attack could be launched. So watch out for that.